Today's story, The Enigmatic Arrival. We have also added this story to our playlist, where you can find all our channel stories at one place for your convenience. The sleepy town of Oakridge had always been a place where time seemed to slow down, where the whispers of the past lingered in the creaking floorboards of old houses and the rustling leaves of ancient trees. Nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, it was a place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets had a way of slipping through the cracks of daily life. That is, until the arrival of the mysterious stranger. It was an unusually stormy evening when the stranger's car, a sleek, black vehicle with tinted windows, rolled down the cobbled streets of Oakridge. The storm had come out of nowhere, its ferocity catching even the most prepared residents off guard. Lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the darkened town with an eerie, almost otherworldly light. In the heart of the storm, the town's only cafe, the Winding Leaf, was bustling with activity. The regulars huddled at their usual tables, their conversations punctuated by the occasional gust of wind that rattled the windows. It was here, amidst the warmth and light, that the stranger first made his appearance. The cafe's bell jingled softly as the door swung open, and the patrons looked up, their curiosity piqued. The stranger stepped inside, shaking off the rain with a practiced ease. He was tall, with an air of quiet confidence that seemed to part the sea of murmuring townsfolk. His clothes, though damp, were of impeccable quality, dark, tailored, and out of place in the otherwise modest setting. At the counter, Ellie Martin, the cafe's owner and a lifelong resident of Oakridge, greeted him with a mix of wariness and intrigue. "Evening. What can I get you?" The stranger's eyes, sharp and discerning, met hers with a gaze that was both unsettling and captivating. "I'll have a coffee. Black. And I'm looking for someone." Ellie raised an eyebrow, her curiosity deepening. "We don't get many strangers around here, especially not on a night like this. Who are you looking for?" The stranger's lips curled into a faint, enigmatic smile. "I'm not sure. But I believe they'll find me." The room fell silent as the patrons exchanged puzzled glances. Who could this stranger be, and what was he really searching for? Whispers began to circulate, and the storm outside seemed to intensify, as if the very heavens were drawing closer to Oakridge. Ellie handed the stranger his coffee, her mind racing. As he took a seat in a corner booth, his presence seemed to cast a shadow over the cafe, as if he brought with him an air of anticipation and mystery. The usual comfort of the Winding Leaf felt suddenly fragile, and Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to unfold. As the storm raged on, the stranger sipped his coffee, his eyes scanning the room with an intensity that made everyone uneasy. The questions hung heavy in the air. Who was he really? What was he searching for? And what did his arrival mean for the quiet town of Oakridge? Little did they know, this stormy night was only the beginning of a series of events that would unravel secrets long buried and change the course of their lives forever. The storm had left Oakridge drenched and shrouded in a heavy mist by morning. The streets were slick with rain, and the clouds hung low, casting a gloomy pall over the town. As the sun struggled to pierce through the gray, the mysterious stranger's presence remained a hot topic of conversation among the townsfolk. At the heart of the chatter was Ellie Martin, who had opened the Winding Leaf early to prepare for the day's rush. The cafe was bustling with locals discussing the previous night's events over their morning coffee. Ellie found herself at the center of the speculation, fielding questions and comments from her regulars. "Did you see that guy last night?" Henry Langston, the town's unofficial historian, asked as he sipped his coffee. His voice was tinged with a mix of intrigue and skepticism. "Never seen him around here before." Ellie nodded, placing a fresh pot of coffee on the counter. "He was certainly a curious sight. Didn't say much, just that he was looking for someone." "Looking for someone?" Henry's eyebrows knitted together. "In a town like ours, that's bound to stir up some trouble." As the conversation continued, Ellie's thoughts drifted back to the stranger. Despite his calm demeanor, there was something unsettling about him, something that hinted at deeper, darker motives. She hoped she wouldn't have to get involved, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the stranger's presence was about to change things in Oak Ridge. Meanwhile, across town, the stranger had settled into a rented room at the old Rosewood Inn. The inn was a relic from a bygone era, its creaking floors and antique furnishings a stark contrast to the sleek, modern exterior of the stranger's car. The inn's proprietor, Mrs. Hargrove, was an elderly woman with a sharp eye and an even sharper tongue. She had raised an eyebrow when the stranger had asked for a room, but curiosity had outweighed any reservations she might have had. In his room, the stranger, who introduced himself as Alexander Kane, removed his wet coat and began to unpack a leather briefcase. Inside, there were various items: a collection of old maps, a worn journal, and several photographs of people and places that seemed oddly out of place in the otherwise mundane setting of Oak Ridge. One photograph, in particular, caught Alexander's attention, a faded image of a young woman standing in front of a grand, old house. The house looked familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. He studied the photo carefully, his brow furrowing in concentration. As Alexander immersed himself in his investigation, a small group of curious townsfolk decided to pay him a visit. Led by Henry Langston and his friend, Linda Carver, a local journalist with a knack for uncovering stories, they approached the Rosewood Inn with a mixture of apprehension and determination. Henry knocked on the door, and after a moment, Alexander opened it, his expression unreadable. "Good morning," Henry began, his tone friendly but cautious. "I'm Henry Langston, and this is Linda Carver. We couldn't help but notice your arrival last night. We're a tight-knit community here, and new faces tend to stand out." Alexander's gaze was calm but penetrating. "I understand. I didn't mean to cause any alarm. I'm here on personal business, and I'd prefer to keep it private." Linda, ever the inquisitive reporter, stepped forward. "If you don't mind me asking, what kind of business?" Alexander's smile was thin and enigmatic. "Let's just say I'm looking into some local history. I believe there are connections here that might help me with my research." Henry and Linda exchanged a glance, their curiosity piqued. "Well," Henry said, "if there's anything we can help with, don't hesitate to ask. Oakridge has a rich history, and we're always willing to share what we know." As they left, the sense of unease lingered. The stranger's presence and cryptic answers had only deepened the mystery. Back at the Winding Leaf, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that the storm had brought more than just rain. It had ushered in a change that would unravel the fabric of their small town. The question that loomed in everyone's mind was clear. What was Alexander Kane really looking for, and what did it mean for Oakridge? The clouds had parted by mid-morning, revealing a shy sun that cast long shadows across Oakridge. The town seemed to hold its breath, as if anticipating the next chapter in the unfolding mystery. Ellie Martin had just finished setting up the cafe for the day when Linda Carver walked in, her notebook tucked under her arm. Linda's sharp eyes and determined demeanor suggested she was already deep into her investigation. "Morning, Ellie," Linda greeted, taking a seat at the counter. "I was hoping we could chat for a moment." Ellie nodded, pouring a fresh cup of coffee. "Sure thing. What's on your mind?" "I'm digging into the stranger's background," Linda began, her voice low. "I've found a few interesting things, and I was hoping you might be able to shed some light." Ellie set the coffee cup down, her curiosity piqued. "What have you discovered?" Linda flipped open her notebook, showing Ellie a few snippets of information. Alexander Kane seems to be connected to a number of historical societies and archives. He's been researching various local histories across the country. But what really caught my eye was a reference to Oakridge in one of his recent correspondences. Ellie's eyes widened. Oakridge? What was he looking for? Linda tapped the page. It mentioned a house, a large, old estate that was apparently significant in some historical context. There's no name given, just a description. But it matches the description of the old Harrington mansion. The mention of the Harrington mansion made Ellie's heart skip a beat. The mansion was an old, decaying structure on the outskirts of town, long abandoned and surrounded by overgrown vegetation. The stories about it were a mix of local lore and whispered ghost tales. It had been the subject of many a town legend, but no one had lived there for decades. "I know the place you're talking about," Ellie said slowly. "It's been empty for as long as I can remember." "Why would he be interested in it?" Linda shrugged. "That's what I intend to find out. I was thinking of taking a closer look at the mansion. Want to join me?" Ellie hesitated. The Harrington mansion had always been a place of mystery and unease for the townspeople, and the idea of exploring it felt unsettling. But her curiosity got the better of her. "All right, let's go." Meanwhile, at the Rosewood Inn, Alexander Kane was deep in conversation with Mrs. Hargrove. The elderly innkeeper had noticed his growing frustration as he pored over old maps and documents, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Everything all right, dear?" Mrs. Hargrove asked, her voice laced with genuine concern. Alexander looked up, his eyes weary. I'm having trouble finding a specific location that's supposed to be related to my research. It's an old estate that's no longer on any modern maps. Mrs. Hargrove's eyes sparkled with recognition. You must be talking about the Harrington mansion. It's just on the edge of town, though it's been abandoned for years. Some say it's haunted. Alexander's interest was immediately piqued. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Do you know how I might get in touch with someone who has information about it? Mrs. Hargrove thought for a moment. You might want to speak with Ellie Martin. She's a local and knows the town's history better than most. Alexander's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Ellie Martin, you say? Thank you. As Alexander prepared to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion held more than just historical significance. There was something about it that felt deeply connected to his search, and he was determined to uncover its secrets. Elsewhere, Ellie and Linda arrived at the edge of the Harrington estate. The mansion loomed before them, a brooding silhouette against the fading light. Its windows were dark and empty, and the once grand facade was now marred by years of neglect. Ready? Linda asked, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. Ellie took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. They pushed open the creaky gate and made their way up the overgrown path to the front door. The air was thick with the scent of decay and dampness, and every step seemed to echo with the weight of forgotten history. As they entered the mansion, the interior was shrouded in dust and shadows. The grand staircase was choked with cobwebs, and the air felt heavy with the weight of untold stories. Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that they were intruding on something long forgotten, but Linda's determination drove them forward. Upstairs, in what might have once been a study, they found a scattering of old papers and photographs. Among them was a faded portrait of a young woman, her face hauntingly familiar. Ellie's heart raced as she recognized her from the photograph Alexander had studied. Just then, they heard the distant sound of footsteps approaching the mansion. The mystery deepened, and the storm of questions grew ever more intense. What was Alexander Kane searching for in the Harrington mansion, and what secrets lay hidden within its walls? The light of the setting sun filtered through the grime-covered windows of the Harrington mansion, casting a dim, amber glow over the dilapidated rooms. Ellie and Linda sifted through the old papers and photographs, their breaths forming small clouds in the cold, musty air. The portrait of the young woman they had discovered was unsettling. Her eyes seemed almost alive, staring out from the faded photograph with an intensity that suggested she was more than just a memory. Linda examined the papers spread out on a dusty table. These look like old journal entries or letters, she said, her fingers brushing over the brittle pages. Some of them are too faded to read, but a few are legible. Ellie leaned in, her curiosity piqued. What do they say? Linda scanned one of the clearer entries aloud. The Harrington estate holds the key to the secrets we've hidden. Beneath the grand staircase lies what was lost. It's cryptic, but it seems to hint at something hidden within the mansion. As Linda read, Ellie's eyes wandered to the grand staircase at the center of the room. The passage about something hidden beneath it sent a shiver down her spine. The staircase, now worn and covered in dust, seemed to loom over them, casting long shadows across the floor. "I think we should check under the staircase," Ellie said, her voice trembling slightly. Linda nodded, determination in her eyes. "Let's see what's there." Together, they carefully climbed the stairs, the wood creaking ominously beneath their weight. The area beneath the staircase was dark and cluttered with old furniture and cobwebs. Linda produced a flashlight and began to search through the clutter, her beam of light revealing dusty trunks and broken picture frames. As they moved aside a large, moth-eaten drape, Ellie's gaze fell upon an old, iron-bound chest partially hidden behind some debris. Her heart raced with anticipation. "Linda, look at this." Linda hurried over, her flashlight illuminating the chest. It was heavy and ornately decorated, with intricate designs etched into the metal. With some effort, they pried open the chest, revealing a collection of old documents, leather-bound books, and a small, wooden box. Ellie picked up the wooden box and opened it cautiously. Inside were several keys, each marked with different symbols. Alongside them lay a faded map of the mansion's grounds, with peculiar markings on it. "Keys and a map," Ellie murmured, her mind racing. This must be what the journal entry was referring to. But what do they unlock? Before Linda could respond, a sound from the hallway startled them. Both women froze, their eyes darting towards the source of the noise. The creaking of floorboards and the sound of footsteps drew closer. Linda quickly grabbed the map and keys, tucking them into her bag. "We need to leave. If someone's coming, we don't want to get caught." As they made their way out of the mansion, they were careful to avoid making any noise. The creeping twilight seemed to press in around them, heightening their sense of urgency. They reached the front door just as a figure emerged from the shadows, the tall man with an air of authority. It was Alexander Kane. "Evening," Alexander said, his voice smooth, but edged with an intensity that made Ellie and Linda wary. "I see you've been exploring the mansion." Linda tightened her grip on her bag. "We were just looking around. Didn't mean to intrude." Alexander's gaze was piercing. "I'm glad I found you. I've been searching for the same things you are. Perhaps we can collaborate on this." Ellie and Linda exchanged uneasy glances. "Why should we trust you?" Ellie asked, her voice steady despite her nerves. Alexander's eyes softened slightly. "Because our goals align. There's something in that mansion that has eluded many before me. I believe we're closer to uncovering its secrets together." The offer was tempting, but trust was a fragile thing. Ellie and Linda decided to proceed with caution. They agreed to discuss further once they had more information. Later, back at the Winding Leaf, Ellie and Linda examined the map and keys under the warm light of the cafe. The map highlighted several areas of the mansion grounds, with a particular focus on a small, unmarked building behind the main house. Linda's eyes gleamed with realization. This small building could be where the real secrets are hidden. It wasn't mentioned in any of the old town records I've seen. Ellie nodded. It's worth checking out. But we need to be careful. We're not the only ones interested in what's hidden in the mansion. As the cafe closed for the night, Ellie felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The arrival of Alexander Kane had added a new layer of complexity to their search. The mansion held secrets that were about to be uncovered, but the journey ahead promised both revelations and risks. The keys, the map, and the shadows of the Harrington mansion hinted at a mystery that was far from simple. Ellie and Linda's quest had only just begun, and the truth lay buried beneath layers of history and intrigue. The sun had just begun to rise over Oak Ridge, casting a golden hue over the town that seemed almost too serene for the drama unfolding within it. Ellie and Linda were already at the Harrington mansion, determined to uncover the final secrets hidden within its walls. The small building marked on the map had become their primary focus. As they approached the unmarked structure behind the main house, the morning dew clung to the grass and the air was filled with the promise of discovery. The building, a dilapidated shed-like structure, had been hidden from view by overgrown foliage. Ellie and Linda cleared away the tangled vines and rusted debris, revealing a heavy, weathered door. Linda held up one of the keys they had found. "This one looks like it might fit." With a bit of effort, Linda unlocked the door. It creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room filled with dusty shelves and old crates. The air inside was musty, and the faint smell of mildew hung in the air. Ellie and Linda stepped inside cautiously. On one of the shelves, they found an old ledger and a series of neatly arranged boxes. Ellie picked up the ledger and began flipping through its pages, her eyes widening as she read. "It's a detailed account of the Harrington family's history," Ellie said, her voice filled with awe. "There are records of financial transactions, personal letters, and wait, here's something interesting." She pointed to an entry that detailed the construction of hidden compartments and secret rooms within the mansion. The ledger mentioned a particular room behind the grand staircase that had been used to store valuable items and important documents. "This must be what we're looking for," Linda said, her excitement palpable. They moved back to the grand staircase in the main house, following the instructions in the ledger. Using one of the keys, they unlocked a hidden panel behind the staircase, revealing a concealed door. With a collective effort, they opened it, revealing a hidden room lined with shelves and drawers. Among the items in the room were old family heirlooms, historical documents, and a large, ornate chest. Ellie and Linda carefully opened the chest, revealing a collection of priceless artifacts and letters detailing the Harrington family's involvement in historical events. As they examined the contents, they found a letter addressed to the future seekers from a member of the Harrington family. It explained that the family had been involved in protecting a valuable historical secret that was meant to be revealed only at the right time. "This is incredible," Linda said, her voice filled with amazement. "These documents could change the way we view the history of Oak Ridge and the Harrington family." Just then, the door to the hidden room creaked open, and Alexander Kane stepped inside. His expression was a mix of anticipation and relief. "I see you've found the hidden room." Ellie and Linda exchanged glances. "We've found more than we expected," Ellie said cautiously. "What do you plan to do with this information?" Alexander's gaze was earnest. "I intend to preserve it and ensure it's properly documented. The Harrington family's story deserves to be told accurately. I've been searching for this for a long time, and I believe it's important for history." The atmosphere in the room shifted as Alexander offered to help catalogue and preserve the findings. Ellie and Linda, though still wary, agreed that his expertise could be invaluable in ensuring the historical significance of the documents and artifacts was recognized and respected. As the sun climbed higher, the team worked together to document and organize the discoveries. The Harrington Mansion, once a symbol of forgotten secrets and eerie legends, was now a beacon of historical truth and newfound understanding. In the following weeks, the town of Oak Ridge buzzed with news of the revelations. The Harrington Mansion was restored as a historical site, and the previously hidden stories of its past were shared with the public. Ellie, Linda, and Alexander became local heroes, their names associated with uncovering and preserving a crucial piece of history. As the town returned to its peaceful routine, Ellie reflected on the events that had unfolded. The mystery of the Harrington Mansion had brought to light not just hidden truths, but also the strength of curiosity, collaboration, and the unyielding pursuit of knowledge. Looking out over the town from the Winding Leaf, Ellie felt a sense of accomplishment. Oak Ridge was forever changed by the revelations, but the spirit of discovery and the bonds forged in the pursuit of truth remained. In the end, the story of the mysterious stranger, the secrets of the Harrington Mansion, and the brave individuals who sought to uncover them had become a part of Oak Ridge's legacy, a testament to the enduring power of history and the quest for understanding.